Ladies and gentlemen. I am here representing DG NEAR, and that's the Directorate-General of the European Commission, and we're involved in neighbourhood and enlargement negotiations. So as you know, the European Union is now made up of 27 member states after the UK decided to leave the bloc, and we are also involved in enlarging the European Union. The European Union started out with 6 member states and then gradually enlarged and now is 27. So in my Directorate General, we are responsible for relationships with the neighbourhood. So the neighbourhood means member states, or countries rather, that are near the European Union but not in the European Union. So these are usually countries in North Africa, in the Middle East. We also have to keep good relations with countries that are geographically part of Europe, but not in the European Union, like Switzerland and Norway. And another important focus is the enlargement of the European Union. And a hot topic at the moment is enlargement in the Western Balkans. And that will be the topic of my speech today. So the Western Balkans, you may know, is an area which is in the southeast of Europe. It's basically south of Croatia and north of Greece. And many of these countries were formerly part of Yugoslavia. So I'm going to talk to you today about 6 countries. 5 were part of Yugoslavia, and the other country is Albania, which was independent even back then, during the time of Yugoslavia. And my speech will follow more or less the same structure throughout. I'll talk about different groups of countries. So there are 3 groups of countries. I'll talk about their current status, some problem areas that they have, so why they haven't been able to join the European Union as yet. And then I will share some other interesting or relevant information with you. So the 3 groups of countries to start with. So they're broken down into 3 groups of 2 countries. So there are 2 negotiating countries, Montenegro and Serbia, 2 candidate countries, Albania and North Macedonia, and 2 potential candidate countries, Bosnia-Herzegovina and Kosovo. In order to become a member of the European Union, you need to negotiate 35 chapters with the European Union. So this means that the chapters are basically different subject areas. So there's a chapter on rule of law, there's a chapter on democracy, another one on human rights, on business and the economy. And if a chapter is open, that means that the chapter is still being negotiated. It means that there's still work ongoing. If a chapter has been closed, that means the issue has been settled. So without further ado, I'll get started on the different states at hand. So I'll start with the 2 negotiating countries. So I'll start with Montenegro. So the current status of Montenegro, it's been a candidate country since 2010, and it's been in official talks since 2012. Another important piece of information about Montenegro is that it has been a member of NATO since 2017. And regarding the chapters, out of the 35 chapters, 32 have been opened and 3 have been provisionally closed. So I say provisionally because it means they could be reopened if anything changes in the country. So what are the potential problems, the sticking points for Montenegro? Well, it's mainly around the whole area of the rule of law, public administration, and social and economic stabilization. These are the 3 main areas. There are some other issues in the country that I think you should be aware of. The country gained independence in 2006. The last elections were in 2016, and there's been some upheaval since then. There was an attempted coup shortly after that election, and then the opposition boycotted parliament. So they didn't recognize the legitimacy of parliament anymore. So that's our first negotiating country. Moving on to the second one, which is Serbia. So Serbia has been a candidate since 2012. It's been in talks with the European Union since 2014, and out of the 35 chapters, 16 have been opened and 2 have been provisionally closed. There are 2 main sticking points for Serbia. The first one, like Montenegro, is the rule of law, and the second one is more specific to Serbia, and that's about normalizing relations with Kosovo. So I'll come on to Kosovo a little bit later on, but you'll know that there was a conflict between Serbia and Kosovo. Kosovo at one time was part of Serbia, and it has now it declared independence in the late 2000s, 2008, I believe, and Serbia doesn't recognize Kosovo as an independent state. So that's an issue that needs to be dealt with. Now, moving on to the candidate countries. So they are Albania and North Macedonia. Albania has been a candidate since June 2014, and then started moving ahead with accession talks after a council decision of June 2018. The problem areas in Albania are mainly around the rule of law, especially the whole idea of vetting judges. So vetting basically means checking that the judges are independent, that they're not having any sort of external influence exerted on them. So the main worry in Albania is all to do with organized crime groups corrupting judges, in a sense, bribing judges to have judgments or verdicts which are favorable to them. And some relevant information: a number of institutions have been set up to fight corruption and organized crime and ensure an independent judiciary. I won't give you all the names. It's really an avalanche of acronyms, but there are a number of organizations, as I said, for to fight corruption and organized crime, and to deal with different types of justice, so prosecution, criminal justice, and so on and so forth. So moving on to North Macedonia. So you'll know that the name has been an issue. I'll come to that in a moment. It's now known as North Macedonia. North Macedonia has been a candidate since 2005, and the Council of the European Union decided to start talks with North Macedonia in 2019, based on our recommendations from the European Commission. The problem areas have been mainly linked to the judiciary, public administration, and the intelligence service. So just making sure that these public bodies are robust, that they're independent, and that they're working properly. And the reforms in these areas all come under the umbrella of a plan, which is known as Plan 18. Now, I mentioned that the name North Macedonia has been quite controversial, and an agreement was found in June 2018, and this is known as the PRESPA agreement, P-R-E-S-P-A, and this was an agreement between North Macedonia and Greece. Now, you know that Macedonia as an area is sometimes the Greeks consider it to be part of Greece, and the Macedonians consider it to be part of Macedonia. So there was a conflict about the use of the name and the use of some of the symbols. An agreement was settled upon in June 2018. So things seem to be moving forward quite well in that area. There was a slight roadblock in October 2018, however, for both these countries, for Albania and North Macedonia, when President Macron of France vetoed the proposal to have further talks with these countries. And President Macron, his decision was queried in some quarters. Of course, as an EU official, I don't have any opinion on this. But certainly the press covered this decision, and President Macron was criticized for that. But it appears that some progress has been made, and that Albania and North Macedonia are back on track to join the European Union. So moving on to the last category of countries, potential candidate countries. So these are Bosnia-Herzegovina and Kosovo. Bosnia-Herzegovina, obviously, if you are aware of the history of the early 1990s, Bosnia was often in the news when I was younger, for example. It was a war-torn country, and it's been a potential candidate since 2016. So a lot has changed over the course of not even 20 years. And it has submitted an application to become a candidate country in 2019. The main issues here are institutional and constitutional reforms. So similar to the other countries, setting up the right institutions, making sure that the constitution covers a number of areas: rule of law, democracy, freedom of speech, and so on. And some other relevant information: Bosnian society and the Bosnian administration is quite divided. It's divided into a number of entities. So you have a federation at the heart of Bosnia, and this is made up of the central government, and it's divided into 10 further areas known as cantons. Then there's a separate republic within Bosnia, and there's also an autonomous region. And these three entities are made up of the three main ethnic groups. So it's quite complicated. It's a small country, but a somewhat complicated country to understand. Then moving on to our final country, which is Kosovo. The EU has been playing a role in Kosovo since 1999, and it's been a potential candidate country since 2016. Now, there's something quite complicated about Kosovo, which the other states haven't had to face, in that Kosovo hasn't been recognized or acknowledged as an independent country by all of the member states of the EU. So there's an EU position on Kosovo, and then there's the stance of individual member states. So Spain is a good example of a country that hasn't recognized the independence of Kosovo. And this is because of obviously some of the independence movements within Spain. If they acknowledge the independence of Kosovo, then they have to also acknowledge some of the independence movements within their own country. So every time Kosovo is mentioned, it has to be followed by a special footnote or an asterisk saying that this is the official EU position and not the position of individual member states. Now, the main issue facing Kosovo, the important issue for Kosovans was about visa liberalization. So this means being able to travel within the EU without a visa, and the process to ease visa legislation was adopted in 2012, and the visa restrictions were lifted completely in 2018. And another issue, of course, is what I mentioned before when I spoke about Serbia. EU membership for Kosovo and Serbia is dependent on normalizing relations between the two countries. So a number of negotiations are ongoing at the moment between the Serbian and Kosovan governments, and it seems to be moving along very well. And this was one of the conditions for lifting the visa requirements. So as you can see, there's a lot at stake here. There's a lot to play for. And there have been a lot of developments over the past 10 years or so in this region. And I think there will be further developments over the next 10 years. So it would be a good idea to watch this space and see what will happen in the future in the Western Balkans. And of course, if you have any questions, I'm very happy to take them now. Thank you.